Good afternoon, everybody. This is Jeff J. Brown, China Rise Radio Sino Land in Shenzhen, just south of the Tropic of Cancer. And today I'm going to take you on a little trip about an hour south of here with Mrs. Graça Pacheco Jorge and the magical and mysterious Macau, which is the anti-Hong Kong. Pictured above, the Macanese native, Mrs. Graça Pacheco Jorge, reflecting on her amazing life and the rich, colorful history of her home. It is my pleasure to share this written interview with Mrs. Graça Pacheco Jorge. We met through the kind offices of Dr. T.P. Wilkinson, who I interviewed recently. Going to Macau is a total breeze for my wife and me living in Shenzhen. We only have to take a 1-hour hydrofoil ferry ride across the Pearl River Delta, and voila, we get to enter the anti-Hong Kong. The difference between these two old European colonies on Chinese soil is like day and night, water and oil. Macau is laid back, quiet, and oozing with centuries of Sino-Portuguese culture almost everywhere you go. Hong Kong is mostly hustle and bustle, noisy, making money, and doing business. Enjoy learning about Macau from a real native, Mrs. Graça Pacheco Jorge. Her biography and background information. A native of Macau, Graça Pacheco Jorge belongs to one of the great old Macanese families. She completed her studies in Mozambique and South Africa. With great dedication to the preservation of the Macanese identity, she collected various items and culinary recipes from the house of her grandfather, José Vicente Jorge. In 1992, she published A Cozinha de Macau de Casa do meu avô in Macau, a book that was which is about cooking, the gastronomy of Macau. The book was republished in 2003 by the Portuguese publishing house Editorial Presença. Graça Pacheco Jorge has also collaborated on documentaries about the Macanese culture. In 2007, she co-produced several events for the 140th anniversary of the Portuguese author Camilo Peçanha. She also published Fotografia de José Vicente Jorge with her husband Pedro Barreiros. In 2011, she released a bilingual photographic biography dedicated to the Macanese people. Graça Pacheco Jorge has been an emeritus member of the Confraternity of Macanese Gastronomy since 2010, when she started coordinating courses at the Portuguese School and other local learning institutions. I have listed here her email, links to her 2 books, and her Facebook address. Please get in touch with her. She's an amazing woman. The written interview, my question number 1. Macau gets shoved out of the limelight by Hong Kong, yet it was Portuguese who first landed by boat in China in 1515, long before the British. Please give us a, quote, Macau history in 5 to 10 minutes, end of quote, lesson, as most people are unfamiliar with it. This is the answer from Mrs. Jorge. When Alfonso de Albuquerque decided to conquer Malacca in 1511, he came across Chinese vessels that were already trading with the Malayans. The Chinese offered him some help, which he refused, saying they should stay and observe how the Portuguese struggled and carry the news to their superiors. Once settled in Malacca, he sent a first expedition to China under the command of one of his best captains, Jorge Alvarez, that landed in the island of Tamu in 1515 and planted a stone pillar with the arms of Portugal. After several ups and downs in the relationship, the Portuguese were permitted to settle in the peninsula of Macau for commercial purposes. During the following 3 centuries that followed, Portugal, through Macau, was the only European country allowed to settle in China. The Portuguese administration depended from Goa, but the Macanese had a great importance in the relationship with the Chinese authorities. During the Napoleon era, the English pretended to settle in Macau, using the argument that they would protect them from the French, but it was never permitted by the Chinese authorities. Macau was always considered a Chinese territory under Portuguese administration. During the Second World War, because Portugal remained neutral, Macau received hundreds of refugees from several countries, both Asian and European, which made the territory better known to the world. In 1974, after the Democratic Revolution in Portugal, began the process of independence of the colonies, and at that time, the return of Macau to mainland China evolved, which happened on the 19th of December, 1999. Since then, the main buildings that marked the Portuguese presence were considered international heritage, the Portuguese language the second official language, and other features were kept, namely stone designs on sidewalks and main streets, as well as the Portuguese name after the Chinese on all the street names, even for the ones constructed after the handover. My question number 2. You have written about Macau's cuisine. Tell us about why it is so noteworthy and unique. Compare and contrast it to Portuguese and Cantonese cooking. Mrs. Jorge's answer to this question number 2. The Macau cuisine is indeed unique. The origin is Portuguese, as it was the one taken by the navigators on their voyages towards the Orient. During the way, they had to stop to refill their vessels with fresh water and food, as well as sometimes waiting for favorable winds to continue the journey. They explored local markets for vegetables, fruits, and cereals that were introduced into their recipes. Once arriving in Macau, they were already familiar with products from Africa, India, Siam, and Malacca. Coming in contact with the excellent Cantonese gastronomy, they adapted not only spices and ingredients, but also ways of cooking and preserving fruits and vegetables. And it is good every time we go. Question number 3 by me. My wife and I always eat at Casa do Porco Preto in Macau. For visitors, please give us the names of your favorite restaurants, bakeries, cafes, etc. Answer number 3. When we go to Macau, we never eat in Portuguese restaurants. We are homesick of the good Cantonese cuisine that is not yet found in Portugal. So I'm afraid I cannot help you there. We also do not eat bread and drink coffee, but there are some coffee shops that serve authentic coffee, as well as some Macanese restaurants with the genuine dishes such as riquecho and litoral. As we still have family and old friends, we eat Macanese dishes in their houses. My question number 4. Please tell us about some of your favorite places to visit in Macau that are not usually listed in tour guides and on websites. Mrs. Jorge's answer to this question number 4. When we go to our hometown, Macau, we like to visit the gardens of our childhood, the narrow old streets, and the places where we lived with our family. Unfortunately, every year as we go looking for a special restaurant or shop, we find it is gone and replaced by an ugly building with no quality. Macau used to be a nice little town, but casinos have grown like poisonous mushrooms, transforming the islands of Taipa and Koloan that used to be separated, connected by the Cotai Strip, where all the big hotels, resorts, challenge among themselves to see who can build a bigger and more impressive one. The air is polluted because there are too many cars, motorcycles, and air conditioning everywhere, where once there was a nice fresh breeze from the sea. Of course, there are still nice places to visit and emblematic monuments, but it is difficult to walk since it is so crowded, except if you go to the inner side of the town, like the Red Market and adjoining streets. Duly noted for our next visit. My question number 5. You and your husband are big fans of Chinese and Portuguese art and poetry. Please tell us about some of your favorites in each category and compare and contrast them. Mrs. Jorge's answer to this question number 5. In the point of view art, painting, sculpture, ceramics, and so on, there is no way of comparison. In the point of view of poetry, the symbolism of the Chinese poets Li Bai, Wang Wei, Du Fu, and Pei Ti is very advanced compared to the Portuguese and Europeans. One of our best poets that lived and died in Macau, Camilo Paissanha, was fascinated by the quality of Chinese poetry and decided to translate some into Portuguese. My question number 6. How do you compare Hong Kong and Macau? How are they different? The same? Ms. Jorge's answer to this question. Number 6, Hong Kong was a British colony that began towards the end of the 19th century during a very difficult period for China, permitting the British to impose their rules and the system of life on the colony. Macau has a history of almost 500 years of common life with the Chinese. My question number 7. Please tell us about Macau's return to the People's Republic of China. It seems to me that its integration is much further along than Hong Kong's. Her reply is, I agree with your opinion, and I think that the integration was easier, as I explained in answer number 6. The way of colonization determines the way, the end of it. Number 8. Do you think the citizens of Macau are more accepting of their return to China than Hong Kong's? Why or why not? Her answer number 8. Yes, I do think it is well accepted by the people of Macau, the return to China motherland. Question number 9. I have always been curious, why are there two spellings, Macau, M-A-C-A-U, and Macau, M-A-C-A-O? Which one is the more correct version? Macau with a U is the name that the Portuguese gave to the territory in the 17th century. With an O is the English way. The more correct version is with a U, the one adopted by the Chinese government, and one of the reasons that we do not translate the names of cities. Question number 10. What cultural projects do you and your husband have going now, or are you simply relaxing and enjoying your retirement? Mrs. Jorge said, my husband continues his work as a medical doctor, paints as a hobby and studies Macanese culture and identity. Now he is working on the Macanese Creole dialect, which I never knew about. As for me, I continue with my work about Macanese gastronomy and the history of the last 2 centuries. At the moment, I will be in Macau from the 16th of May to the 22nd of May, which is today, to attend a photographic exposition about our mothers, the 2 younger daughters of José Vicente Jorge, and the way they lived in Macau in the first quarter of the 20th century. I attached the invitation in case you should be there at that time. Signed, Graça Pacheco Jorge and Pedro Barreros, her husband. And my final note, unfortunately, my wife recently broke her leg and is quite immobile. She is crazy about Macau, and I simply could not go without her. So I miss meeting Mrs. Pacheco Jorge. Hopefully this summer, with her cast off, we will try to travel to Portugal for the first time, and we can meet the Jorges. Thank you very much. This is Jeff J. Brown, China Rising Radio Sinoland, signing out. Bye-bye.